All right, let's go. So we're going to build our application, and we want to know how to hook up the backend Node.js, MongoDB, and Express to our front end React. So that is always the hard part, right? How do we do this? Now there's many. Like I said, there's a few different ways you could do it. If you had that Next.js, you could run that from the backend to have server-side rendered code. However, that's not what we're after right now because we're trying to do full stack and we don't want to run everything primarily off the backend. You can see right here, you can also do a hybrid. So you can do hybrid static and server rendering. So you can also do some hybrid mode where some components are rendered from the backend, some are rendered on the front end, and you need to hydrate them. Again, this is more than what we signed up for. And you need to go through another framework, right? Now Next.js. So that's kind of above and beyond. What we like to know, especially, is how to hook up our Node.js to React. Now, if our Node server was configured to run on the cloud or whatnot, it would just be another server that has endpoints, and our UI could certainly hit those endpoints like we have done with JSON placeholder, Tippy code, and all these different ones. It's just another endpoint to fetch. However, when you are trying to build these applications across the same domain, which is localhost, some interesting things happen. Some things get blocked, and sometimes you cannot run your application, right? So there's a couple things you need to do when you're building this to take into account. When we've been building our apps, we've been primarily doing our Node.js in a bubble, in a kind of enclosed environment where we're just running Node.js. Same with React, using Create React App. We have our UI running. How do we blend the two? How do we complete the MERN stack? I guess in the easiest way possible without having to introduce another framework, right? There's a number of ways you can do that. I told you the other hybrid approach. You could render your interface through template rendering using EJS and Pug and those things, and then put in like the DOM and the external reference to React, and then build it that way. You could, but we want to try to maintain our Create React App as well as Node.js. So what you need to do, and is kind of one of the tricks to it, is you need to have two projects. So you create your backend as you normally would, standalone backend in Node.js. You install your Node modules, everything you need, Express and Mongoose for our wrapper, for our database and our API. And you build out your APIs and you have them. They can sit independently. You can use Postman. You can hit your backend. You can get validation. You can work with that. If you just do that, you have a very big piece of the puzzle. Then you can go and build in a separate project that is outside of that. See, we're not blending React inside of here. That is an option, but we're not doing that here. We're keeping it separate as if the backend is done completely different from what we're doing. We are using a front-end project, so we have a web UI is the project. This is the React project. So in this React project, it's a bunch of things from Material UI. It has Axios. We could use Fetch, right? But Axios is fine because it's running off the Node.js server here. Moment, React DOM, we have a router, so on and so forth, right? Now, the key is, though, when you launch these up, they launch on different ports. They don't launch on the same port. So you would have two instances of your terminal window. So you come in here. Here in the UI side, npm start. If you'll like me today, we kick this off. It should be nice and tell us that it's running on whatever port it's going to run on. I believe it's running on 3000. At the same time, we go to our backend. We open a terminal window. We go onto another terminal window, and we do npm start as well. That should go and kick off the Node application. I think the Node application is configured for port 8080. Sorry, this one's on port localhost port 301. The front end, as you saw, is loading, is on port, starting the development server is on port 3000. So we'll wait for that to chug a little bit. And when it does load up, eventually we should have application. Now you just noticed one little step that you just noticed is I had to go in, so you can see here it actually is rendering. Node data here, I should go into the Node.js and see if I can actually add something based on the model. I can do that. One thing you noticed is I had to go to one terminal window and start it, and then go to another terminal window and start it as well. In the README, it'll actually tell me, okay, this is what you should do, right? You should go into these folders, install node modules, then npm start in both folders, which is perfectly fine. You can do that for your project. However, there is another option as well, but this one I'll just show you quickly. There is another package in here somewhere. Package.json will tell us. Is it in here? No, it's in this other package.json in the backend, I believe. Package.json. So there is, am I looking at the right project? Anyhow, it may not be. Nevertheless, there's a project that is called concurrently. So if we look at concurrently, that will actually allow you to run. It's pretty nice. You can, in your scripts, you can configure it so you do npm start, and it'll kick off exactly what I just showed you. Go into this directory, launch this. Go into that directory and launch that. Install concurrently, install and save it, and then you can have start concurrently, and then command 1, command 2, command 2 cd, change directory to that whatever path it is, or npm start. At the same time, you can combine commands with the ampersand somewhere in here. I don't know if there's a combination here for that, but anyhow, you can do ampersand, and you can also say change directory into the other one and launch that one. So you don't have to do it in 2 steps. That's just a little segue while this is loading up, but you don't have to do that. But if you do change directly manually with 2 terminal windows, it's perfectly fine. And right now it is launching up with, the main thing is it's running without errors. So if we take a look at developer tools, you can see there is no errors, although there is no data. If we took a look at the network tab, there's not a whole bunch of 404 requests. You can see them all come in, and maybe we can try to mock data in, because we don't have that other front end piece running. We might be able to mock data directly in MongoDB. But event log, it comes back with a response. Sorry, some of these events, event log, the header is okay across the remote address, localhost port 3001. Came back with empty because there's no data, but it is okay. So, I mean, we have a bunch. So we have the event history, the download history, then there's rooms. This was a chat application and grabbing all of that. But it came back again okay, and the response, some of these responses are empty. So I'm sorry, we're on this event tabbing. That's why we're not seeing the other calls. If we click into download history, we should see a call to history. Again, same thing. It's a good response coming back with nothing. Now, when I say it's a good response, because we're running across the same domain, localhost, if you don't do a couple things, you will not get that 200 okay. You will get a bunch of 404s because your local host will not like the fact that you are running requests across the same domain. That's not really allowed. It could be a security breach. We talked about security the other day, and that could be a breach. Quickly, let's see if we can go in. I'm not sure of the model, but let's see if we can take a look and see if we can add something in here. I think if I take a look at, is the database even connected there? We have demo music admin, and this one is using, you stay with me here, I go to the back end and I want to look at what the connection string is. Okay, so maybe we'll just change this one here. I'm not using NodeMan, if you remember, and there's a reason why I guess I should be using it. I have to terminate my window, remember, and I have to start it again if I want to pick that up. So I have to run npm start again, pick up that change. I should be able to mock data if I can't do it on the fly here, but so that should still connect, but it's going to connect to this database here, demo music admin. And maybe I can mock some data here. We'd have to look at the models, if you remember the models. The Mongoose model, so let's close this guy out so he doesn't bother us anymore. Let's go to our models. So we have one for history model and one for event model, I guess similar to yours. Maybe this is a preview. Let's take a look at the event model, and it has a socket type, socket, and a socket, which is a type of string, a type, and an event time. So socket at least, right? So we should be able just to give it at least, if we created a new collection, called it events, create collection, events, and then as we know with MongoDB, it doesn't really matter what we give it. It's not going to bark at us. We could give it information about who's playing in the hockey games tomorrow, and it wouldn't really care. It'll just take what we want. But we're specifically looking for a couple keys. So maybe we'll give it socket and some, GUID crazy number, right? At least, the very least, maybe. Well, we know it will not reject us. It should not. It should not reject us. Let's see if it's there. Did it save? No, it didn't save. Why didn't it save? Refresh. Let's try that again. It did not like that. Why did it not like that? Let's try it again. And I see. I see what I did. Okay. I put it inside the ID key. Let's try it again. Socket. We have some GUID, whatever it is. Insert. There you go. Okay, I added inside the key, which is bad. You cannot add another element inside of the key itself, which is a terrible thing to do. Sorry, I got some question for some reason. It must have lit up. I'll look at that in a second. So we have a socket right there. Let's see if we refresh it now. It may not be the exact model that we like. Okay, so what is it missing here? We'll see if we can mock it. If not, so new schema, socket is a string, type is a string, event is a string. Why would it not like us? It should like us. But even if it doesn't, we can continue on. Socket, we do have data in here. Events, is this called event? Let's see. It looks like it's called event. Socket event is the model. And then it is socket events. So maybe we should try socket events, right? Now you guys correct me if I'm wrong here. The model is socket. The table is socket events. Let's try to add socket events, or maybe we can rename this guy here. Let us rename it. Maybe not. Okay. Let's try socket events. If it doesn't work, you can always go back and edit this video. And let's try this again. We're going to add a document here, and let's just see. We don't want to mess with that ID, so we're going to put the property beside it. Socket, and we want the socket to be whatever. Right. Insert the document. We should have it now. Go back, refresh. Not there. Okay. Well, it's probably something small, and I should probably maybe use the model directly if I wanted to. That would probably work. But anyhow, let's move on past that part. What we want to do here is just establish that we're getting the calls back, but we're getting it without any errors, which is good. Now, if there was data here, it would show up and it wouldn't show this. But the main thing is that we are connecting the front end right now. Even though the data is not showing, the front end is connected to the back end. Right, and without errors, we are getting across localhost. How do we do that? Firstly, we are running on different ports. However, we are both on the same host name. what we'll normally do is it'll block us. If we try to run this on local, there's something called CORS, which is no access. CORS is cross origin resource sharing. So cross origin resource sharing. Again, one of those things we talked about. One of those things about security the other day. So it's basically not going to like us to go across the same origin, right? And for a number of reasons, right? But so ideally the server is going to try to block us from this unless you tell it otherwise. And how you do that is you need to, so you can see here, core explains for beginners, make the request. The server says you're blocked. It'll block you, and you will get 404s back. So what you got to do is you have to go and install a node module for CORS. It's middleware for localhost. So this was a CORS package for providing Connect Express middleware that can enable cross-origin resource sharing with various options across your routes. So you go ahead, you install this module, wire it up with Express, require it in with CORS, and then you use that middleware, app.use. That's the magic. That's the secret sauce right there. You use CORS, you allow it. You enable CORS so that when you are calling across your local host, you'll allow it. You can also enable CORS for single route. So if you wanted to just allow one route, you can provide that as an option. This is the CORS enable for single route. Other routes would be rejected. There's a bunch of options in there as well that you can use for dynamic origins and things like that. Because you want your RESTful tool, for your testing locally, you want your RESTful APIs to be able to not just work through Postman. Postman runs on a separate port altogether. You want to be able to talk across local hosts without having things in the way. And if you did not have this installed, your project will not work, and you will not understand why it will not work. And many people have been there, why it doesn't work, right? So the main thing right there is CORS. Install CORS. You wire up Express. Here's your MongoDB setup. Install the middleware. You have to install the middleware before you set up your Express routers. And then you can set up the rest of your server on localhost, whatever you determine it, and you launch it, right? But this needs to be middleware before even your routers are launched. Take a look quickly at a route. For instance, the one we were trying to look at here, it just has, you're just fetching and then you're sending data back. So we're using our MongoDB, but the main thing is that we have enabled cross origins sharing across localhost. And again, like I said, it seems like a small little piece of middleware, but you'll be blocked without it, totally blocked. And you want to understand why it went in. So you'll have one backend running on localhost, whatever port it is, 3000. The front end will be talking on a different port, say 3000. When you go into your front end, nothing really special here. I mean, they have Axios. Again, you can use French. You can use fetch. So you can use Axios, and let's see a little example of what Axios looks like. Event log history. So we have a bunch of UI elements there, but here's Axios right there. And you see the port is configured statically to localhost 301. So that's the port that it's going to be calling on. So if we look at our, just to confirm here, our project UI is on 3000, right? So we want to we're on 3000. We want to make calls to the Node.js server, which is on 3001. 3001, that's where we're going, and we'll skip past to where we make the Axios call somewhere down here. So here's where we're using Axios. So we are getting a GET request on our local host port 3001, and then whatever our endpoint is. And we're not doing anything with options. So we are posting from localhost to a different port. The server is listening on that port. The main thing is that the CORS cross origin resource sharing is turned on to enable, to allow these to go back and forth. Otherwise, like I said, you would get 404s and you will be blocked. When it returns back, it sets the data and it maps it out nicely. And that's how you do it. That's how you set up the two layers, right, for your project, and how you set up the MERN stack and connect the two pieces, right? Without those steps, you will have two separate isolated projects, and you'd be wondering why. So that is why. So that's how you hook it up, all right?